Would you rather fight one behemoth-sized chicken or 50 chicken-sized behemoths?
One really big chicken.
Yeah, I'd rather fight one really big chicken. Yeah, I'm thinking like all I got to do is slay this one. It's like a giant dragon, like a giant.
It's like a giant.
Like Lord help me acquire I feel like chickens are like immune to slingshots though.
It's so big though, you just hit it.
Yeah, but have you seen me try to throw a rock at a barn? I've missed.
I'm just trying to imagine it. I can't. So.
It's like 50 little
behemoths
running around.
Yeah, but what are behemoths?
You could just like kick them.
Yeah, let me see you go up to a chicken and kick it. Let me see if you can catch it. I don't think that's happening. Anyone. They make games out of catching chickens.
I know, but if you were having to fight it, you could just
chicken fights.
Kick it. Like a soccer ball.
But you gotta remember, it's not a chicken anymore, it's a behemoth.
Right, but it's chicken sized, so it's tiny.
I've seen some big chickens.
I was gonna say, have you seen those organic chickens?
Okay, this is average sized chicken.
Okay.
Little chicks.
That's right.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening whenever this video finds you. Today we are covering Job 35 through 42 and Genesis 12 through 24. I'm Michael, and this is Deep Dive. So we have finished Job's chapter in last week's reading, and we are picked up back in Genesis 12. And I didn't want to cut off from the icebreaker, but I felt like that was a good close. We're
and that's all Job.
we got average chickens, and the word behemoth shows up, so that's good. And we can always come back to that because I want your guys' thoughts on. I want to hear your thought because I'm okay with the one big chicken, but so yeah, we closed out Job, and Job was at the end redeemed, and he got double what he had when he started, and God blessed him through his what am I looking for? Like his basically being still. He was upset, as anyone would, why me? Like, why is this happening? But, he also remembers that, God is just and God is holy. And so in 36:21, Elihu seems to be saying that people use pain as an excuse to sin. How might people use pain or suffering as an excuse to justify sinful or destructive behavior? Can you guys think of a personal or general example where this has happened? I mean, you guys might be starting first. I mean, this may be a little bit too much with recent events, not to shed light on it, but I mean, look what's going on in the Holy Land of Israel. There's a lot of hurt around in that area, and there's a lot of pushback between both nations, and one being deemed as a bad party and one being deemed from other perspectives as a bad party. And you can see that through pain, it's justified now for them being able to do these actions to whomever it may be because they are hurt. So
I think as humans, we just kind of unfortunately do that a lot. Just try to find ways to justify why what we're doing, even if we know it's wrong, that it's okay. Well, it's okay because I'm just, I'm really, really depressed right now. And that's, why I'm going through it. It's really hard. I'm angry or whatever the reason. And we just try to justify it. It doesn't make it right. But I think that's just our human flesh and our way of coping sometimes.
Yeah. And that, just from personal experience, I've been angry with some things in the past, and it led to a lot of adult behaviors that probably were not the best behaviors, but I did it and I can do it because now I have this job and now I can do this and that because I can afford it. I didn't have it when I was younger, but that's such a horrible mentality because God pulled me out of that, not to become that kind of person, but to be more humble with my situation. And so, yeah, I can definitely speak to the coping aspect of that, Patty. Brandon or Hannah, do you guys have anything in regards to?
I was going to say almost the same thing. A lot of times people, in order to cope, they choose things that they think will help, good or bad. Most of the time they're bad, and then they justify it like you guys said. Oh, well, I'm going through it, so, this is what I did to get out of it, or this is what I did to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
Even though it's still wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's really not making them feel
Right.
better.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
it's
It's
actually
really
most
not.
times it really isn't actually helping, but it's our crutch or whatever.
Yeah.
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 I mean, you can see people use pain and suffering as destructive even to themselves, not so much even an outward to someone else, as some people can do that, but even to themselves, they can hurt themselves. And,
I think there's a difference in like instantly feeling those emotions, because I feel like that's human. But then when you choose to sit in it and continue it, that's when I feel like it really, really, erupts your soul and everything going on, your patterns and your behaviors and how you treat others. If you choose to not, you know what I mean? Not
Yeah.
try to make it better.
it's almost like that's where the enemy wants you to be.
Absolutely.
The enemy wants you to be in that prison, even though the door's wide open. You can just walk right out and be done with it. But it's easier said than to do, because we are our own worst critics in a lot of things, and we are also our own prisoners in our own prisons. So, I mean,
We see all throughout the Bible where people are tested and they fail. I mean, that's us. It happens every day.
I mean, we're literally in this. We're in the sermon series about David, and David being the man after God's own heart, he fails, and he fails in a way that's pretty up there. Pretty up there. If you haven't joined our group, sign up today and follow along with a community of commonality. We are all doing the Bible recap. So join our group. It's over on Facebook. I'll leave a link in the description below. We are doing Tara-Leigh Cobble's Bible recap. So if you guys want to follow along via the app, you can go to the Bible app and just make sure you search Tara-Leigh Cobble, the Bible recap, and or you can go to our website. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe, as we are trying to reach everyone, and we're get them to know Jesus. So we're going to do it one Bible study at a time. So
I like it.
carrying over to, well, before we go into Genesis, does anybody have anything else on Job that they would like to shed light on before we head into Job or Genesis?
I was just going to share, I really did love the podcast that Kelly had shared in our group with John Mark that did it, and he had a beautiful way of talking about Job. But anyway, at the end of it, in the summary at the end, where he talked about God finally speaks, and he, even with all the things that Job said wrong, or things that were not right or whatever, he still said he was angry with the other three, and that Job was still a faithful servant. And in reading that, he said the reason is, even though he said things that were wrong, in all of it, he always went to God with his wrestling. And so it's important for us to do that. And so it's okay to question God and to ask, why is this happening to me? Or when, will this stop? Question those things. It's okay to do that. And it's okay to be angry and experience those emotions. But it's important to understand that God is in control and he doesn't have to answer you. And so we've seen that in Job. And at the end, when God comes and he speaks and he says, basically how he's sovereign over everything. And he, was asking him, where were you? And I did all these things. And then Job is just silent, and he is taken back and realizes he was in the wrong for the constant, all the questioning, but he says he's sorry, and he repents and asks for forgiveness. And then he doesn't go on anymore. He doesn't want to be questioned anymore. You know what I mean? He doesn't have any more questions for God at that point. And he never does once he comes in. So I thought that was really, really good. It was a very good podcast. I definitely would encourage you to watch it if Job was hard for you in any way, because Job was very hard for me last year when I was doing this the first time. But I feel like I love Tara-Leigh's recaps and stuff, but the John Mark, and then also that Francis Chan that's on the Right Now Media. It's very, very good as well.
I think it goes along with today's sermon as well, because he was not even getting answers, and he was almost like getting a no every time he was praying.
Absolutely.
And then finally it was like he got his yes. So
Exactly.
It's funny because Job is showing up and like he was in our Bible study this morning in our 9 a.m. class. Like I'm seeing, I think the book of Job is really going to be instrumental in a lot of things.
Yeah. And Pastor Greg was talking about, God said no to David about David trying to build God's home, and then but a yes to God building David's home. Well, the same thing with Job. Job was praying. He was, was crying aloud. What have I done? All these things, and he was receiving. He wasn't hearing from God, which, and you can infer from that would be a type of no, right?
Yeah.
But then at the end, all of it was a yes, but it was a big yes.
Yeah.
Why do you think Abram, not Abraham, Abram lied about Sarai being his sister? What does that say about his faith?
I have thoughts, but I
can come on.
to go.
Yeah, if you guys want to,
we were literally just talking about it. But
Yeah.
if you guys want to go first, you can.
Go ahead, Brandon.
from our conversation,
Yes.
you got it. You take it away. I'm gonna take all of her words.
So it talks about, how beautiful Sarai is. And so it's like when he's going to these lands, he fears that he will be killed. So he says that it is his sister. I guess because if it was his wife, they'll kill him, so that's no longer his wife. And I mean, that's my take on it. So anyway, that's what he says. And so, and it happens again later. I think it was in yesterday's reading, 19. Maybe.
When he what's the
When he
king's
does
name?
it again.
Yeah,
Amalek.
Amalek.
And he says that time that he didn't know if that area feared God. So he again lies and tells them that she is his sister. But then he says, but it really isn't a lie, because while she is not my sister from my mother, she is my sister from my father, because she is a child of God. And I mean, so that is true. But he was definitely doing it in a way out of fear, because he still wasn't trusting for sure. And it ended up being a test with Amalek. And God also, didn't allow any sin to happen between him and she's Sarah at that point, I think, right? Yeah. But yeah, that's why, because of fear that he would be killed. And so that was their decision, that they were going to call her his sister. We'll see if later he starts calling her his wife. I'm not sure yet. I haven't been there.
Off camera, you asked why so many name changes, and I'm actually looking it up right now. It's Genesis 17:5. It says, "Your name will no longer be Abram, but your name will be Abraham, for I will make you the father of many nations." So I think and we talked about this, I think he changed Abram's name because that was God giving the covenant to him, and as he was giving him the covenant, he was giving him a new name along with, instead of Sarai, it was Sarah. We can go a little bit more even to Hagar and what happens to her.
Can I see your Bible?
Yeah. So
Thank you.
Sarah laughed. Well, Sarah felt uncomfortable because Hagar was kind of making mocking Sarah. And Sarah just walks to Abram, "Hey, that servant right there, I don't want her here no more." And then just, okay. And of course, Abraham was shattered about it because he's like, what? But one thing that I noticed about that, and we talked about this too, is when they were walking through the desert and Hagar felt so bad for her son, and then she was just, she walked away from him because she couldn't bear the fact of watching him just basically die. And you said something, I don't want to take that from you. So we talked about what God did in that moment for.
Yeah, I just thought it was really special how, it's like you see, to me, Sarah has got a lot of maybe some jealousy. It's kind of how the way I'm reading into it, and she wants her gone. And so, but God still fulfills his promise to Abraham, and that this son is also going to be one as well. And I wrote down that about the Ishmael line's promise for the descendants, and the Isaac's line is promise for descendants in the land. But in that actual story about Hagar and Ishmael, it was really sad, to think of a mother sitting, I think I said a bow shot away. And so then I'm like, Jason, how far is a bow shot away? No, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, and to just think about a mom to sit there and watch your child die. Like, wow, that's heavy. But then, God sends the angel, I believe it said that, sends the angel to comfort her. And to tell her, that it's going to be okay. Pick up your child. What was it? He said, lift up your child, lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. So in all of that, God does not forget Ishmael. And he still provides for them too, even though they've been cut off from the rest. So I just thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
And he gives them the water and he goes on, and we'll learn more later, but we see that he continues.
I mean, even in that moment, you can even see that God is saying, no, you are still my family.
Yeah, you're still important.
You're still important. Yeah. It's not like he's like casting out, well, you don't belong to Abraham no more, see you later. But no, you can see that God is loving, and God right there in that moment cares about Hagar and Ishmael. And you can even take that to today. Like, that's how we are. We are adopted in his kingdom, and we need to understand and not let the enemy say we're not worth it and we don't deserve or whatnot. We need to understand that, Jesus died for us to have that relationship with God. So in that context, we are Ishmael, and the enemy's trying to make us feel the feelings of what Hagar felt,
And it was important too that, Abraham was sad about it, like you said, but God told him, no, listen to Sarah. But that's because he had a plan, that this was going to be the line that this happens from. But don't worry, I'm still going to, make great things still happen with your other son. So,
yeah. Not to backtrack, but Sodom and Gomorrah, when the angel said, you need to leave by dawn. This place is about to be, I'm paraphrasing, this place is about to be rubble. So they were like, well, where can we go? Well, there's a small town, and the angel's like, okay, yeah, go there. We won't destroy that. We'll just be here. I wonder how big because it said the heavens rained down sulfur and it just burned this place down. And then when Lot's wife turned, and she turned to a pillar of salt, like, what?
I know.
That's it was like one sentence. I think it was.
And that was it.
Yeah, it was just like, and she turned to a pillar of salt and died. Next, it was like, huh? You stared at something? You just turned to a pillar of salt?
She disobeyed their commands.
Yeah, I mean,
said, do not look back and don't stop anywhere.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting you brought that up about the city. So it said how Lot had actually begged, like they first said, go to the mountains. And he was like, please, no, I don't want to go there, that they would die there. And so they said, okay, we'll let you go to the city. But then after they looked back at all the destruction happened, he still went to the mountains.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of I thought that stuck out to me a little bit.
I didn't pick that up.
Or at least that was, I think he didn't end up going to the city. I could be wrong.
Well, whatever. He was in the cave and some interesting things happened there, but to be honest, they acted upon themselves. That wasn't
let's skip that.
Yeah, that wasn't a God instructed thing. That was a human nature thing.
But I think it's good to say, as new readers of the Bible, when you're reading that and it's hard, know that we all feel that way. Yeah. It's not 100%. Supposed to be like that. And later in the Bible, we're going to find out why and how God tries to get rid of that sinful nature that's happening. But I feel like we should say, hey, it's natural that you're
right. Yeah.
Whew, because I looked at Trey yesterday. I was like, when you go to read this one later, this one's hard to read.
There's some spots in the Bible where it gets hard to read, but just know
don't
that
give up.
Right, there is a reason, and there is redemption.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below something you took away from Job.
Yeah, so we're talking about the circumcision stuff, and you just said that there's some things in the Bible that are difficult to read and be like, why? Just why? But we got to remember, we are not God. So with that being said, circumcision. I'm only going to highlight some of the things that I've taken from it, and that was like what we just said. This 97-year-old guy circumcised himself. And I was about to ask Brandon, imagine you'd been like, there's no medication. Not that God's word says that, they administered anything. No, they were all circumcised. That has to be painful. I'm just going to throw that out there.
It's also painful when you're a baby and you're 8
years
old.
Yeah. And as babies though, we tend to be like, yeah, I don't remember that. But I would remember being at 38, hey, I'm being circumcised in 3 days.
You would.
And are they going into it like it's game day? Like, all right, let's go, tunnel vision? Or they're like, they wake up and...
This is a question for men only.
Yeah, this is I don't know.
Important to know though that those who are not circumcised do have a lot of issues. So it's like
There is
he
some
knows
medical.
that that's something that is
yeah.
needed.
Yes.
There are some medical.
And I guess I don't know. Is it like a mark? Like I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard.
Do we
It's
see
hard.
that? That's weird. Can we move on to another?
Well, let's talk about the animals that he did too with the king, because when the king took at the time Sarai, and Abram lied about it, God appeared to him in his dream and said, "What if you have taken this woman, and I will do such and such to everything." And he was like, "Wait a second, I didn't know." And God gave him mercy right there.
Yeah.
He's like,
I
"You're
thought that was
right.
special, too.
You didn't. So return the wife." And then, but then what's weird is like, if I you lied about it, and then I turned around and gave your wife back, I was like, you know what? Because you lied, I'm going to give you $10,000, and I'm going to give you all this cattle, and don't forget the other stuff. And you know what? You can stay all of that land. That's how much fear. Remember, we talked about it, that God was not feared in that land until after that moment. So it was like an indirect, they became fearful, like, hey, you take whatever you want. Like, they knew God.
I thought it was interesting though, because yes, he feared him. Like, it talks about how he was, but the next morning Amalek goes to his officials and he asked him why. He didn't instantly bring Sarah back. He wants to know first why, and then he gets that, and then he does. So I mean, I was like,
Yeah. That's powerful stuff. We're going to go ahead and go into the sermon, unless you guys have anything else for the past couple recap. The sermon title is When No Becomes Yes, and Pastor Greg delivered an awesome message. So just one of the questions we have here is, would anyone like to share about a time when God said no, but set you up for something greater, like a yes moment? And some of the scripture that he used today was awesome, about David wanting to build a home for the Lord, and God said, no, I'm going to build you a home. So
this is in 1 Chronicles chapter 17.
1 Chronicles chapter 17. So do you guys have a time when God said no, but set you up for something greater?
The thing that came in my head this morning, whenever, it's going to make me cry. So I've been praying for friends to get to church for a while. And my prayers with friends kind of started with some different people and family and stuff or whatever. And some of those are still no's. But today we had yeses. And so, I don't know, that was kind of my example of it. It's like, so just don't stop praying for those people. Sorry, you're going to have no's. But just remember that, like, the one that does come may be the answer to the other ones that come later. And that was kind of something that stuck out to me today. Not a specific no. I mean, I do feel like it was kind of a no to some of my prayers. I mean, I've been praying heavy for certain people, and I'm still praying for those people. And I've gotten yeses for others. And I shouldn't say I've gotten. I mean, God is all the glory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean by that. But,
God knows what your heart
yeah.
is. Yeah.
So anyway, that was a
Yeah, absolutely.
sorry.
No, you're good.
I think a big thing I took from today was I focus so much on on not getting anything, so getting the no's, that when I get the yeses, I almost overlook them. And it's just something I'm working on. Got to work on, obviously, but I think that was a big thing I took from today.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like what Brandon you just said, and Patty, when you emphasized about the prayer you pray heavy, like I realize that I don't pray enough, and I think so I had to tell myself, no, I'm going to start praying avidly, so I can go through those moments of, is God answering this? Because if I only pray it once and then I forget about it, am I really wanting whatever I'm praying for? Like, if I'm forgetting about it every day and I don't pray on it. So I made a prayer board and I wrote down everything that I'm praying for, and I look at it and I pray right there, right in front of it. So that way I know it's fresh and it's right there, and God knows that I'm being attentive to it.
It's also a good way to see the blessing in your life.
Absolutely.
Like, God answered this prayer. God answered this prayer. Whether it was a yes or a no.
Yeah.
It shows his faithfulness and his response to you when you pray.
Yeah.
We talked about prayer journaling some at Women of Joy, and so when we came back from that, I was like, I'm gonna do better about this, and I've been back and forth on it. But when I was prayer journaling, or when I have been, I can tell I love that, because you can actually physically go back in your notebook And I mean, I have times where I've written the date where I prayed for that and that was answered. And I think it's huge, like to be able to, you kind of just in the mundane forget about, that's how you can see the little yeses, I think.
Yeah.
Do you know, one of the examples that Pastor Greg shared was he wanted to be famous, and I honestly,
He is.
yeah, right. But no, like it resonated deeply with me because when I grew up, I didn't go to music school, but I do remember spending so much time on playing guitar and playing music that I joined a band and I wanted to become famous, and there was so much stress in my life. Phone calls. Stress in my life because I was wanting something so bad and it wasn't coming. But this was back in a time when I wasn't praying for it, but I look back in hindsight and it's like, when Greg said that he played at last year's Conference of Women of Joy, and he's like, that right there is like the best feeling that I played with him and I felt that same thing. Mm-hmm. And it hit me, and I was like, man, that's so true. Sometimes I get wrapped up in what I want, and I don't realize the small yes is much grander. It has a much grandiose?
Grandiose.
Yeah, grandiose than what I ever could have thought. Like, I was chasing this, what I wanted was the people, the fame, but in reality, the feeling was I have touched many and to bring them to Jesus, and that is a much better feeling than anything. We're talking about the sermon about when God says no, but he sets up David, and just like he's all said no to us at some point, but he does it out of love. He is the Father, and he's the utmost loving Father. And so how do people typically respond when God says no? Do you think people become stuck on the thought that God hasn't answered their prayers when he's just saying no?
I think sometimes, like me, I don't really understand yet that he's saying no. Like, I'm ignorant to it at first. It takes a while of it not happening to understand that it's a no, or seeing it down the road. But it just kind of goes back to, like, when I don't hear an answer, or if it's like an opportunity shuts on me, I'm immediately like, I've tried so hard to get this, but it's like, that's the thing. I'm still relying on myself. Right.
I'm not relying on God. And if I would have just relied on God, my perspective would have been like, God's closing this chapter for something different, and it's going to be much, much grandiose than what I would have anticipated. And, that's something that we can take away, like, don't rely on yourself, rely on God to provide. Jesus said, do the birds worry about them being clothed and the food they eat and the flowers?
And look at all the things we worry about.
Yeah, look at all this. Exactly. Like, we're just so anxious over everything. Like, what shoes am I going to wear? Like, do I got to look this way? And it's just like, man, like, that's just a stressful life. And you can just go simple and just be like, I don't really care. I'm dressing for God. I'm working for God. I'm doing this for God. And it's my difference now. I shared this chart with you guys in the group about, and that occurred to me one day when I was working out, and I was like, and I was like, because I heard this motivational speech, and he said, because it was I can't remember his name, but he was speaking about God and what he does, and he said, I want to work out, and because I don't want to look good for people, I don't want to look good for myself, I just want to age better. And he said, like, when I am called to deliver the gospel, he said, I need to be in a good state here and a good state physically so I can do the best I can for God. It's like, you heard these things about, God isn't going to dig this hole for you. He's going to give you a shovel. You still got to work. You still got stuff to do, but just know that you're doing it for God, because in your faith, you will produce these works. So you guys have anything else for how do people typically respond when God says no?
Sad, angry.
I read somewhere in a book, and it was about, God's response to us when we pray. And so one of the questions is if I don't hear anything, does that mean that God is just is not answering me? He's choosing not to answer. And the comment was like, well, God hears you and God is listening to you, but God is saying no. Like, if you don't hear anything and you're waiting, that could be God's way of saying no. He's answering you. It may just not be, you may not be wanting to hear that answer. And so the whole stuck, you pray for something and you're waiting and you're like, I just don't hear anything from God and I'm just waiting. Well, maybe that was a no and you're just stuck there and you're not hearing what he's saying yes to.
That's hard because sometimes my mind thinks, well, what if it's a not now?
Yes.
Or what if this is is this a patience builder?
Right.
Yeah.
Am I supposed
It's just
to?
a test.
Am I doing? Yeah, right. Like there's so many things that go through our minds, and like you said, but ultimately we get stuck.
Yes.
Whatever thought we're stuck on, we're stuck there.
Yes.
you know?
God is
But
always
are we
going
really
to answer
praying
you.
about it
Right.
to ask, to know if he is answering us or not? Because sometimes if
Yes.
we're so stuck in our question and you aren't, like you said, you're not really seeing if he is or not.
Right.
Because you're really just seeing what you want to see.
Yes.
So
Yeah, so that's it. That's all I've got for today. If you guys do have any questions you'd like us to answer on Deep Dive, or if you would like to appear on Deep Dive, definitely email us at deepdive@libertyhill.church. We greatly are appreciating, and all are welcome. All are welcome. All questions are welcome. And
All of 'em.
all of them,
It
every
helps
one
us.
of them, it helps us. It helps us formulate these things. But yeah, if we ain't got nothing else, that's all I've got.
ain't got nothing.
All right, thank you guys, and God bless.
Ping.
Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Deep Dive. The takeaway we can look at today is God makes Abram a 3-part promise, a great nation, and God will bless Abram and all nations through Abram, and God promises to give Abram and his children the land of Canaan. What we can take away from this story and these promises today is that God gave us Jesus Christ, and through Jesus Christ we are saved and we are adopted into God's family and holy kingdom. So if you haven't and you need help, or if you need any way to give yourself to Jesus Christ, definitely reach out at deepdive@libertyhill.church, and I or any one of us or even the pastors here will definitely reach out to you and get that going today. Thank you guys so much, and don't forget to click this video or this video to see more. All right, we'll see you guys next time.